Okay, pretty exciting. We are starting our new textbook. So I'm going to stay with the same kind of format for our notes, but I want you to understand. So we're starting in our big ideas. 1.1 is our section, and this is all about solving linear equations. Okay, and this is really the key, friends. Okay, we have to be able to solve linear equations. So I'm going to divide our paper and we're going to do lots and lots of examples, okay, to make sure that we understand solving linear equations, because that's really the basis of all algebra. Okay, and I will also include on this a little how to manipulate your textbook and everything, because everything is going to be right online, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the first part about solving linear equations with adding or subtracting. So let's take our first example here. X minus 3 equals a negative 5. So you can see why we reviewed adding and subtracting negatives, because that's pretty important. So as far as the addition property of equality and the subtraction property of equality, so here's the thing. I need you to look at the x. The x is what I'm solving for. Do you see the x and that I've circled it? Okay, think about the x as an onion. I want to get that x all by itself. And our key to do that is to move everything away from that x. So if this is minus 3, what could I do to get rid of that 3? You do the opposite, and that would be the addition property of equality. I'm going to write that down for you. The addition property. Okay? And here's the other thing. What we do to one side, we of course do to the other side, so that it's equal, like a balance. So the x comes down, the equal stays there. I know there's a big gap, but that's okay. What happens here? Negative 3 and a positive 3 cancels out, friends. And what is a negative 5 plus 3? Well, that's a negative 2. So my answer is negative 2. That is the addition property. All right, so what do you think we're going to do with the subtraction property? So let's use a decimal here. 0.9 equals y plus 2.8. Now I like this one because not only are you using decimals, but I'm over here on the right side. So again, my only variable is y. I'm going to circle the y because I want to get that all by itself. So the way that I can get this all by itself, I need to get this 2.8 out of here. Well, this 2.8 is positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the subtraction property. So I'm going to put a star and put subtraction property, okay, of equality. And what I do to one side, friends, I of course do to the other side. And because I'm so good at, you're so good at adding and subtracting negative and positive values, you know that 0.9 and a negative 2.8 would give you a negative 1.9. Okay. All right, friends, now it's your turn on this side of your paper. Here you go. N plus 3 equals a negative 7. And let's do a fraction here. N minus 1/3 equals negative 2/3. Now, this isn't necessarily the addition and subtraction right next to it, I might have mixed them up on you. In fact, that's exactly what I did. All right, friends. Let's take a look. Let's put a circle around this N. Okay, can everybody see that? All right, so what am I going to do to get rid of that 3? It's already positive. So I want to, you're right, subtract. And what I do to one side, got to do to the other. So these cancel out, don't they? N equals, now this is a -7 minus 3. Think about that, -7 minus 3. What do I get there? Well, adding a negative, 2 negatives, still a -10. Okay, now I subtracted on each side. So which property did I use? You're right, I used the subtraction property here. That's pretty easy. If I subtract, I use the subtraction. All right, again, circle. I want to see you do this on your paper. I want to see you circle that N. Okay, I'm going to add 1/3 to each side. Because this is already minus. Minus and a plus, those go away. I'm left with N equals -2/3 plus 1/3. That's going to give me a -1/3. Now, what property did I use? I added to each side. Oh, well, that's easy. Well, sometimes that back is in my answers. I use the addition property. Awesome. Okay. Next on the list, what do? I need to talk about multiplication. And division. So let's do 9x is equal to 81. Okay. Again, I'm going to use my pen. Now notice that there's no operation between the 9 and the x. That's because it's held together by, you're right, multiplication. So in order to get rid and get that x all by itself, what's the opposite of multiplication? You're right, it's division. So I'm going to divide by 9 because 9 divided by 9 gives me a 1 or just 1x. But what I do to one side, I need to do to the other. So 81 divided by 9 is 9. Now, which property did I use here? That's the division property. Why? Because I divided. Well, that's pretty easy. I'm going to add another, maybe just a small, okay? All right, so if there's a division property, there's got to be a multiplication property. So I'm going to do this. Just because there's a pesky negative involved, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this negative. I'm going to slip this down in front of that -5 like that, okay? Now, I'm going to circle my N. All right, how do I get rid of that pesky -5 on the bottom? N is being divided by -5. What's the opposite of division? You're right, multiplication. I'm going to multiply by a -5 so that a -5 divided by a -5 gives me 1 or just N. Now, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So what's a -3 times a -5? You're right, it's 15. Okay, now it's your turn. Okay. Again, get your marker out. Oh, by the way, because I multiplied on each side, this is the multiplication property. Sorry about that. Forgot to write that down. Okay, what do I do up here? Well, that's being divided by 3. What's the opposite of division? All right, multiplication. And what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So what do I get here? 3 divided by 3 is just y. And what is negative 6 times 3? You're right, negative 18. Now, I multiply on each side. That's the multiplication property. Mult prop of equality. Okay, I know I gave you a decimal, right? Kind of weird. Here's my W right here. There we go. Okay. Now, this 0.05 and W are held together by multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplication? Right, division. So, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. Okay? W equals. Now, to be quite honest, friends, we're going to use calculators here. Not a big deal. You can totally use calculators. I don't have a problem with that when calculating this out. So in this case, okay, so let's see, that'd be 2 decimals, 5 goes into 14 twice. Let's see, with 4 left, how about 28? Okay. I had to do some old school division there. Oh, and by the way, because I divided on both sides, this is the division property. Okay. All right. Questions on that piece? Okay. So one of the things that we need to really talk about eventually is looking at, of course, some story problems, friends. Okay. And with the story problems, keeping in mind our steps to approaching these story problems. So I kind of want to go through some of these ideas. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to attach a different part of the video to kind of help you come up with the steps. But I want you to think about some key ideas to doing story problems, okay? Okay, so one of the first things is to understand the problem that you're looking at, okay? Which might take you, so this is going to kind of encompass both of these, which might take you a couple times reading over the problem. What am I supposed to be looking for, okay? Maybe the next step needs to be thinking of some strategies, okay? In this case, making a plan. At this point, maybe making a sketch of something, drawing. If it's a perimeter problem, why not draw a picture of it? The next piece would be, of course, to solve it and probably come up with an equation to solve it. And then look back. Did I find what they asked me to find? Okay. Did they find what they asked me to find in the first place? Okay. You might need to use a formula that you've already been given. I don't know. Or you might have to use a formula or make up your own equation, okay, that you might need. Okay? So we're going to work on a few of those story problems because those seem to be pretty troublesome for kids. All right, friends, thanks a lot.